Okay, it's all yours, Roy.
All right. And how long do I have? 30 minutes?
40 minutes.
Ooh, yay. Okay, good. Uh,
You can do 45 if you need to.
all right. Well, it really depends on you guys. If you want to interrupt with questions, I'm totally fine with that. You can even leave your mics open if you want to, if you don't have background noise. I kind of like it when people leave their mics open because then when I make a joke and I hear silence, it doesn't break my heart. Um, so if you have a quiet place, you can leave your mic open if you don't have echoes and whatnot. But anyway, yeah. So this is a presentation I put together and I keep updating and updating. I think this is my sixth version of it and 6 or 7 time sharing it. But yeah, I call it the Certification Examination Preparation Simplification Presentation, and that's more for kicks and giggles than anything else. But this is something I put together just thinking through all the things I've learned from Salesforce certification prep over the years that I wish I'd known before my first certification, and things that are even helpful after your second, third, or fourth certification. If you don't know, then it can be useful stuff. So I am 10 times certified. I just became an application architect last month. And I've actually passed 11 Salesforce certifications. One of them has since been retired. Um, and of all the certifications, I have failed 3 times and I passed the other 8 times on the first try. And so I have life lessons and experience on both sides of that. So yeah, let's jump on in. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about which cert you should consider going for first. Once you've chosen your cert, what do you do next? How do you schedule the exam, and should you choose to do it on site or online? Coupon and voucher codes, we'll talk about those. Then we're going to get into the test taking tips, the real meat of it. And that's it. Okay. So first off, which cert to go for first? It's my opinion. Well, first you go to Trailhead and go to the certifications tab in Trailhead and look at the credentials and click certifications. And from there, you see these different roles. You click through the roles and look at the different certifications that are available for that role. And it's my strong opinion that most people should start here with the administrator certification. This is like the Salesforce equivalent of the high school diploma. It's like it's the bare minimum. It's the basic thing, and almost all other certifications build off the administration knowledge that you have. Even if it's not a prerequisite for other certifications, there's an assumption that you know some administrative sides of Salesforce. So most people should start here. If you're a developer, you may want to start here. Both are fine. Both are really Salesforce 101 kind of certifications. If I had to, and there's a lot of overlap between these two certifications. If I had to really differentiate between them, I'd say administration is mostly about the proper feeding and care of your Salesforce org. And the platform app border is about how to make declarative enhancements to the Salesforce org. But again, lots of overlap between these two certifications. Anyway, I think most people should start with one of these, but you're the person on the scene. You have to make that call for yourself. If you're a developer and you just don't want to do the admin or the app builder stuff, you say, Roy, I don't care. I want a developer certification. Okay, you can start here if you want to. You don't have to do the admin thing first, but read the description carefully. According to Salesforce, platform developers know when to use declarative versus programmatic methods. And they will ask you questions that you could solve with code or you could solve declaratively. And typically the right answer is going to be the one that takes the least amount of power, the least amount of complexity. So if you could do things declaratively, declaratively is usually going to be the correct answer according to the exam. There's always extenuating circumstances, but I'm sorry. Let me talk about those two terms real quickly. So if you're not aware, declarative is the click and drag, the building through the UI of through the interface of Salesforce, and then programmatic is the code side of things, where you get under the hood and start writing in Apex and JavaScript and Visualforce and all that stuff. So even with this one, which doesn't have the prereq of admin, they expect you to have declarative understanding of Salesforce. So anyway, that's where most people should start. If you're already somewhere in the journey, then based on that experience, you probably already know which direction you're heading, so you can pick your next cert on your own. But that's where most people I think should start. Once you've chosen your certification, Now what? Well, you need to figure out how much time to study. And there's a conversation that I have with people all the time who say, I'm thinking about getting admin certification. And they say, how much time do I need to study? And here's how the conversation goes. I'll just let you read it yourself. And that's a conversation I have all the time. Um, there's no way of telling an individual how much time they need to study. It depends on their personal history with Salesforce and their experience. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. How much experience do you have in Salesforce in the cert area in which you want to test? I do have a loose rubric. This is just my own opinion, just thinking through things. If yesterday you said, what's Salesforce? You'll probably need a good chunk of time. I'd say 200 hours to get to that level of like completing a semester's worth of work on studying and learning what Salesforce is and what you can do with it in order to prep for, let's say, the admin certification. If you've been doing some Salesforce stuff for about a year, maybe 80 hours, 2 years, 40 hours, 3 years or more, 20 hours. And I say, even if you've done more than 3 years of Salesforce, you probably still need to do some studying, because if you've been in one org all that time, there's corners that you have not looked into. There's doors you've never opened before for your org. They just didn't use that feature. So you'll need to become a generalist to get ready for the certification. You'll need to go on Trailhead and learn about all the aspects of being an admin for generic orgs, not just your company's specific org. So yeah, I'd say at least 20 hours if you've been doing Salesforce for quite a bit. So let's do a quick pop quiz. Susan has been at her company for 2 years as a Salesforce admin and is prepping for her admin certification. She decides she can study 1 hour a day, Monday through Friday, and 5 hours on the weekend. When should Susan schedule her exam? All right. So that's a total of 10 hours that she can study over the course of a week. And she's been in Salesforce for 2 years. So going back to our rubric, what's the correct answer?
In a month.
In a month? Yeah. In other words, 4 weeks. Yeah. Well, there's actually two answers that I would accept for this. The first one being 4 weeks or a month, give or take 6 months, or no clue. It's a trick question because it still depends. I don't know what Susan's been doing for the last 2 years. Did she build the org or did she inherit it? Has she been in Salesforce admin full time, half time, quarter time? Does she have other responsibilities that she works on mostly? Is she a solo admin or is she on a team? Is her org healthy or is it a mess? How customized is the org? How many users and stakeholders is she supporting? What edition of Salesforce she has? If it's less than enterprise, then there's features she's never touched before because they're only available at enterprise or above. Did she bring any transferable skills to the role? Has she made any significant enhancements, or has she just been resetting passwords for the last 2 years? If Susan has been a full-time Salesforce admin for 2 years, helped stand up the enterprise level org, worked hard to maintain and keep enhancing the org using Salesforce best practices, has been exploring the three times a year release notes, and has been regularly attending her local community group, hint, hint, and actually learning on Trailhead, then 4 weeks probably is enough time for her to get ready for the admin certification. So, but again, so all that is to say, it depends. Uh, you really have to figure it out for yourself based on your own experience and your learning styles and whatnot. So the next thing you have to do is choose your exam date by solving this equation. So you've figured out how much you need to study and which exam you're going to test for. So you just fill in this equation and you're ready to go. And this equation is self-explanatory, right? I don't need to unpack anything here. We'll just move on. Just kidding. So SHN, study hours needed. Let's say I think I need 60 hours to prep, and hours per week. That's the number of hours I can study in a given week. And with that information, I could say, okay, well, if I can do 60 hours and I can do 15, I need 60 hours and I can do 15 hours a week. That's 4 weeks from today. So around mid-June is when I could schedule the exam. And again, the key to this is coming up with a good estimate for how much time you need to study, and then coming up for a plan for how much you can study in a given week. So you've estimated hours of study needed. You've committed to a study schedule. You've picked a date to take the exam. Now you actually need to schedule it before you start studying. Do you see that? That little animation makes me very happy. I'm going to do it again. See that? Okay, we can move on. Um, so how do you actually schedule exam, and should you do it on site or online? I don't know what the situation in Canada is right now with COVID in the Ottawa area. Are you guys able to go to a testing center right now?
No.
No? Okay, so this is advice that hopefully will apply in the near future, but for now you might need to do it online. If you're not in a rush, I would recommend on site, and we'll unpack that. But the way you schedule exam is from Trailhead. You're looking at your certification. You'll see this little box that says schedule now. You click on that, and that takes you to the Criterion Global Testing Solution. If you've taken search before, you've become very familiar with the site. You just put in the login credentials you've created, and you log in and go find your cert. If this is your first time, then you start here. You create a new web accessor login, and this is very important. Do not use your work email. Use your personal email, because this email is what they will use to associate your certifications to you in the future and communicate to you about uh, whatever they need to about certs. And if you ever leave your company, you don't want to have to reach back to your boss, a month or two later and say, "Hey, I want my Salesforce certs, please." So use your personal email address when you set up your Criterion credentials. Okay, they are your certifications, not your employers. So make sure that you hold on to them if you change jobs. Uh, Outside of COVID times, you have the option of online or on site. Online is from your personal computer box in your home or in your office. You take the exam. On site is you go to a testing center. Right now, on site may not be an option for you. It is an option for me here in Colorado, but uh, things are different up there in Canada. And so, yeah, at some point you'll have this option again, but for now, you just might have to look at online. But what are the pros and cons of them, and what should you do? I prefer the on-site option. I think it's best for two reasons. Reason one, online can be a huge hassle and lots can go wrong. Uh, in the online exam, if you do it from your personal computer or from your office, you download this Big Brother software, and Salesforce proctors monitor your test taking. They see your camera, they hear you, they hear the room. They used to require two cameras. They lightened that up for now during COVID times to only having one camera. But even still, I have friends who I've heard so many horror stories about online test taking. Um, the dog barking caused the proctor to stop the exam. Um, a train going by the window caused proctor to stop the exam. One guy was taking the test in his office, and in the conference room next door, there was a birthday party, and they were singing happy birthday, and his exam got stopped because the proctor heard the happy birthday song. Um, Another one, one guy was talking to himself and got his exam stopped. He had to stand up and like wave the camera around the room, show that no one else was there, because he was just reading the question out loud to himself. And the proctor came out, wait, who are you talking to? What's going on? And he had to like show the room. And the other issue, the software, the Big Brother software that you have to download onto your computer. One of my coworkers at my current company, he tried to take the exam online, and the Salesforce Big Brother software would not play with the company's security software. And so after like 3 hours of trying, he finally had to give up and just do it on site. So you may not want to use your company's computer to do this because of that download. You may have to use your personal box, but just just lots of issues there. So that's reason one. Reason two, I'll actually unpack later, but it has to do with the tips. There's a tip for the on-site test taking that you can't do online. And so, but I'll explain that in detail later. Now, again, during these times, you may have to do it online. And if that's the case, well, there are links in the deck that I shared with Kevin that will take you to the exact places in Trailhead that will explain to you what you need to know about online proctoring and completing your exam remotely. And then there's operating system information for Windows and Macs that you can click through as well to see what you need to do to set up. So my co-leader here in Colorado Springs has only done online proctoring, and he likes it just fine. He said there's a bit of a hassle that first time setting things up, and you got to do this face recognition thing where the lighting has to be just right, and you have to sit the exact same spot, and while they do facial recognition software on you. But after that, it's not been a big deal for him. For me, the only downside of on site is the drive, and I don't mind the drive at all. So, but other than that, um, It's not a big deal to me. And I did do some checking for you guys, and you do have a Academy of Learning testing center in your area. And again, this will have to be after COVID, but check this out. You get there early and you go to Tim Hortons. Oh, go to Tim Hortons. Get yourself a donut and coffee and relax a little
I'm
bit.
surprised you
go
don't
take
go
your
to
test.
Hortons.
Oh, guys, I lived in Canada for a year. I lived in Calgary for a year back in 2012.
Ah, that explains it. I was going to say go to the beer store afterwards.
Well, that's if you fail. If you fail, you go to the beer store afterwards, and then yeah. But anyway, there is a testing center. So once restrictions lift and it's safe to go out again, there's a testing center if you want to go to it in the Ottawa area. And where did I find this? Well, I found it right here. So when you get into criteria and you log in and you pick your exam, it says, okay, where do you want to take it if you're taking it on site? And this is for my area in the United States. There are 2 testing centers here in Colorado Springs I can choose between. And there's only one in Ottawa, but if there's another place a little bit further away, you might check. But if you get more than one center, you can actually click on both of them like I've done here. And then you hit select, and then that takes you to calendars, and it gives you the option to toggle between the different calendars of the centers that you chose to see if the Pikes Peak one doesn't work for me for some reason, they don't have availability at the time I need to go. Well, let me click on the AccuSkill one instead and see what their availability is. So you can actually see what options you have to the on-site. I've seldom had trouble scheduling exam for the times I needed when I've had multiple centers in my area. So that is a little bit about on-site or online. After you've chosen your exam and your date and your time and whether it's on-site or online, you get to this checkout page and you click checkout, you put in your payment information, and you move on. But wait. Go back, Roy. What's that thing in the middle? How do I score coupons and voucher codes, you're asking? That's a fantastic question. You guys are sharp. To get voucher codes and coupons, there's a few ways you can do it. You can pay for the trainings and or pay to go to Salesforce events. There's usually when you do, again, I'm thinking more about the in-person stuff than the virtual stuff, but like Trailhead DX, Dreamforce, different events that come around that you pay for, often they'll throw in a voucher with those for some exam. So pay attention to those opportunities when they come up. Sometimes they'll throw in multiple. I think I got 3 vouchers for going to Trailhead DX 2 years ago, and I used them all up. So that was great. So that's one way. Salesforce certification days, that's a way to get coupons. See Trailhead for that. And there's also a community group, Salesforce certification days, that keeps you in the know of when they're coming up. And there's these one-day sessions that you can attend to get you prepared to walk you through preparations for a certification. And at the end of it, they send you a coupon for a big discount on your exam. Come to your local community group. Sometimes they give us community group leaders, certification vouchers to give away, unless Kevin's been hoarding them. I don't know. Maybe he's never told you this and I just outed him, but we get certification vouchers that we get to give away to members of a group who attend. And we do that here every now and then.
Well, I'm going to have to speak up. So we have in the past given away vouchers, but since it's COVID, we haven't received any.
Okay. I don't know. I have to talk to my co-leader. I'm not sure how he pulled it off, but he worked out something that since we weren't meeting in person, and so giving away traditional swag wasn't really a great option. Vouchers was something else he was able to secure. So
that's true. That is true. We can pay for certification coupons that the user gets. We get them free of charge, and then we can give them away. It's just we haven't done that. I'm guilty. Okay.
Well, I just threw Kevin under the bus.
Thanks.
Everybody. That's sorry about that, Kevin. Didn't do that.
That's okay. No, that's okay.
Another option is working in a nonprofit. If you work in a nonprofit, Salesforce will give you a coupon for 50% off the exam. So if it's a $200 exam, you pay $100. If it's a $400 exam, you pay $200. There are a couple of $400 exams. And if you work in a nonprofit, here's just a few things to know. This is the email address. This is out there, but it's not advertised super well. But you send an email to this address and you say, Subject, nonprofit voucher code. I'm a full-time employee at a nonprofit. That's a Salesforce customer. May I please have a 50% discount code? Thank you. Don't forget to say please and thank you, because they'll still give you one if you don't, but I'll think less of you if you don't. So say please and thank you. It's just nice. See, this is where people being muted hurts me, because I don't know if they think I'm funny or not.
Ha ha ha.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. Thank you for the token laughters. I appreciate it. All right. So if you work at a nonprofit, that's the way you get that. Now, a few notes about that. Within 3 days, they'll send you an email with a code in it that you just drop into that coupon voucher code thing. Now, here's the fine print about this. This is for full-time employees of Salesforce profit customers only, not volunteers, not part-time employees, full-time Salesforce nonprofit customers. Each code is single use, and you can request up to 5 codes in total. So over your course of your career, you can get 5 nonprofit codes. It's for your initial exam only, not retakes. And you don't share this code. I mean, technically you could give someone the code, but don't, because Salesforce says in their email, abuse of this could lead them to stop offering the discount in the future. So the code's for you. If you work with someone else at the same nonprofit who wants a code, then give them the email address so they can request one. They're pretty generous with them, so it's not a big deal. But don't give them your code. That's your code, and that takes away a win from you, and it could lead to issues. So that's a little bit about nonprofits. One more thing about vouchers and coupons. They do expire. However, you don't have to take the exam before they expire. You just have to schedule it before it expires. Does that make sense? So if it expires in 30 days and you want to schedule it for 90 days out, you can do that, but you need to schedule it before the 30 days is over. So that's just another note about the vouchers and coupons. All right.
I have a question. I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Is it true that you can't use paper if you're doing it from home?
That is my understanding as well, and that's actually getting into one of my tips that I'll be touching on shortly.
Yes, it is. So.
That is true. Yeah. All right. So, but we're going to come to that in just a second when we talk about the on-site tips. But test taking tips. Where to start? Trailhead. Trailhead is the best place to start. They have the certifications, they have the credentials, they have the paths. They just keep making it better and better. They put together curated trails and trail mixes just for exam prep, that if you go through those trails, you're going to hit on all the things that they mentioned in the bullet prints. It's their test, their exam guide, their content. So it will cover it. And it's the best place to start. Okay. So Trailhead. If Trailhead is not enough, here's some additional resources you might consider. SFDC 99 and on Pluralsight, David Liu has a great, this is mostly for those who are trying to break into development, but he is a he's a self-taught developer who works at Google. He's a multi-year MVP. I think he's been Salesforce MVP 6 or 7 times. And he has a passion for helping those who don't know how to code. And he does the best job of anyone I've ever sat under of explaining code to those who have not done coding. Most of the things I've gone to in the past, like if it's Dreamforce or TDX, and it was like a coding 101 or Apex 101 or whatever. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. At some point, the presenter is going to say, if you know Java, this Apex is going to be very familiar to you. Or it's like, okay, this works the same as it does in Java. Or if you know SQL, then the SQL is going to be no problem. Or just these statements like, well, if you don't know those things, that definition does nothing for me. Well, if you know wigwams and these gibbery Jews will be no issue. Well, I don't know wigwams or gibbery Jews, so that you've told me nothing by saying that. Okay, rant over. David does not do that. David actually unpacks things as if you've never done any coding whatsoever. And so he if you're just looking for the basics of development, his content on his website, SFDC99, and his Apex Academy course on Pluralsight are phenomenal. Salesforce Ben, that's a great website. He not all the content is his. He curates a lot of content from other Salesforce professionals, and a lot of it is about exam prep. He has some great information about exam prep in salesforceben.com. Udemy, Mike Wheeler has some good content on Udemy. I've heard good things about it. If you do look at Mike's stuff, some of it's dated. Don't do anything that says classic. Just look at the stuff that's lightning and make sure to check the timestamps for the last time it was updated. But it's good foundational material that I've heard a lot of good things about. And this one I added about 2 presentations ago, because the first 3 times I did this presentation, at some point someone would say, also focus on force is really good. And after that happened, like the 3rd time, I said, man, I got to check out Focus on Force. So I did. I used Focus on Force to prep for the last 3 exams I took, and it was phenomenal content. I'm very impressed with Focus on Force, and it's just a coincidence that I'm speaking today along with the Focus on Force. But I highly recommend them. They just great content. Huge help to me as I prepped, and I am now an application architect, and a big part of that is the Focus on Force materials that help me kind of get into the test taking mindset. So yeah, very good stuff. Also, there's the Trailblazer community groups, not just your Ottawa group, but there's a certification days group. You should join that and make sure you get the notifications to tell you when the next certification day is coming up, and sometimes they do special things in there. Search study groups. If you go into the Trailblazer community and you type in marketing in the search window, then you look at the groups, somewhere you're going to find a marketing certification prep group. If you type in admin, you're going to find an admin certification prep group. A developer one certification prep group. You're going to find those groups. Join those groups, ask your questions, be a resource, be blessed and be a blessing in that group as you kind of work through things together, and take advantage of those. Your local user group. However you guys connect, we use the Trailblazers community group to post questions to each other. Say, hey, did you guys ever see this problem before? Like, I'm trying to understand this thing on Trailhead. You got any thoughts on it? And so take advantage of your community, your Ohana, your local Ohana, as you prep for the group, prep for your exams. But those are some of the resources that you can check out to figure out. I don't know, to just get some camaraderie and help and resources to get ready. Now, about the exams themselves, they're multiple choice. Some questions are multi-answer, meaning you choose 2 or 3. Those questions I did find out, it took some finger bending, but I did find out officially from Salesforce that they're all or nothing. So if you have to get them 100% right or they're wrong. You can mark questions for review and come back to them, and we'll come back to that in a minute about when we talk about some more tips. Most exams are 60 or 65 questions. The exams are 65 questions. They're still only 60 questions, but Salesforce likes to do the thing where they social proofing of future questions. So they'll put 5 unscored questions in there somewhere just to see how well they're received, if they make sense or not. And so your exam will be 60 or 65 questions, but you're only counted for 60. They just don't tell you which ones. Passing score, it depends. Actually, I have seen them as low as 58%. They're usually somewhere between 62 and 68%. About 2/3 is the typical passing for most exams. But that specific score for the exam is in the exam guide for the exam you're looking at. Their time, they're usually between 90 and 120 minutes for a typical amount of time. I've never needed 120 minutes for any of the exams, but you have that much time if you need it. So don't feel like you have to rush. You can take your time and digest and read. There's a timer right there as you're taking the exam to let you know how you're doing for time management. So take advantage of that. But yeah, typically an hour's been enough for me, but if you need more, you have it. And was that it? Yep, that's it. Okay, so that's a little bit about the exam structure and how it's built. Now into some specific tips. Probably the most important thing I can tell you about the questions is that the word choice is extremely intentional. What I mean by that is there's no waste in their word choice. There's no fluff. They don't throw in some extra context so you get a richer picture of the universe that the fake company that they're talking about is in. If it's in the question, it matters. Take note of keywords like always, only, never, all, none, some, must. Like these are words that will have impact on the answer. It'll take an answer from being correct to incorrect based on those kind of words. Other things, for example, if they say they want a Salesforce admin to be able to do something, well, if they say admin, then probably the answer is going to be something to do declaratively. If the answer has something to do with code, then that's not going to be the right answer because they said a Salesforce admin should be able to do something. Now, if they say a Salesforce developer should be able to do something, then that opens it up to both sides. So just take very, very careful note of all the words in the questions. None of it is there for filler or for flavor. It's every word matters. Let's take it. Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll come back to that. If there are too many options that seem like they could be right, choose the one that you think is most right or always right, without some sort of caveat or special condition. So things like lookup and master detail relationships, they're very similar. And some things you could do both ways. But with lookup, you have to do it like required, for example. In a master detail relationship, that relationship is required. You can't have an orphan. You can't have a child without a parent. In a lookup, you can have an orphan, but there's a box in the lookup that you can mark saying you can't. You have to have a parent and make it required. So if the question talks about like they must have this, well, yeah, you could set up a lookup to do that way, but you would have to do it with a caveat or a special qualifier that they didn't ask for. So if that's the case, well, I could do it that way or that way. Choose the way that seems most right or always right to you without any special qualifiers. If you're not sure, eliminate the choices you know that are wrong, and then pick between the ones that still have some potential. And this is test taking 101. This is stuff that you probably learned uh, in grade school or primary school. Or anyway, that's just some good tips. So here's an example. Okay, this is a made up question. It's not as good as focus on forces, but I think it'll do the trick for today's purpose. Universal Containers likes fruit that are green only on the outside. Which fruit should they choose? And we have a few keywords to take note of. They like fruit that are green only on the outside. So here are our choices. And here's how my mind works. I'll just take you on a journey through my mind. So I look at this and I go, limes. Well, they're usually green inside and outside. So the question says only on the outside. So I'm going to eliminate that one. Kiwis. Kiwis, are they green on the outside? I think they're kind of brownish, but I'm really not sure. But regardless, I know they're green on the inside. So not kiwis. Apples. Well, not all apples are green. There are green apples, but not all apples are green. So I don't know. Maybe let's come back to that one. Donuts. Not a fruit to doy. So we'll eliminate donuts. Then watermelons. I've never seen that one that wasn't green and the inside is red. So I'm going to choose watermelons and eliminate apples. That is how the Salesforce exams feel as you go through the questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're
Yep.
absolutely right. It's all about how you read these questions and how you are familiar with language of Salesforce.
Yes.
You need to know terms and be familiar with them to understand the question and to be able to choose right.
Now, here's the thing. I've also seen questions like this. Choose two answers. No change to the verbiage whatsoever. But now that brings apples back into the mix because there are green apples. And now it takes it from it has to be to, well, it could be. So this is a possible scenario that you could find as well, where it says, how might you solve this? And now you got the watermelons, which is a definite answer, and then apples are a conditional answer, but it says choose two. So of these choices, I have to go with this. So those are the kind of things you'll see in the Salesforce questions. So those are my tips for the question. The primary tips for the questions. Also, go with your gut. Don't change your answer unless you have a really good reason. More times than not, if you went with your gut answer and then you come back to it and you're reviewing it and you stare at it long enough, unless you had an epiphany, unless you had a oh yeah moment like where it just clicked, don't change your answer. Because more times than not, you ever say a word so many times it starts to sound wrong? Like you just, banana, 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 banana. And you just get to the point where it's like, it doesn't sound right anymore. That's what you can do with the Salesforce answer. Like you'll just read enough times like, yeah, I chose that, but it just doesn't sound right because you stared at it too long. But if you didn't have a clear reason to change that, then don't. Anyway, that's that. Use the exam against itself. This one is, I think, a overlooked one quite a bit. So I think it was the Service Cloud exam. I took the Service Cloud exam. I didn't pass on the first try. But one of the reasons was I took it right after they did it was right after they introduced macros, and macros was not on my radar whatsoever. So as I'm going through the exam, I keep coming across these questions where one of the answers had macro in it, And every time I saw that, I went, that's not a thing. And I eliminated that from the choices. And then I came to a question where macro was in the question, not the answer. And I went, oh, snap. If it's in the question, that means it's a Salesforce thing. That means it could have been the right answer for some of those questions. So regardless, I didn't know it well enough to pass, but I then had to go back and try to find all the questions where I had discarded the answers that had macro in it and re-review those. But I could do that because I used the exam against itself. I took a mental note that this term that I saw in the question meant that, even though it was unfamiliar to me, meant that it was an option for the answer. So again, that's just a test taking trick that just use the exam against itself to help you. You might discover something like that where there's a term you're not familiar with in an answer, and you're not sure it's a Salesforce thing, and then later on it comes up in the question, in a question, and that will maybe help inform you on that.
Hey, Gord, quick question. How much time do you think you need to finish? 10, 5?
Who? What?
How much time more do you need?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I can wrap up pretty quickly. Let's say 5 minutes.
Okay, great.
Sorry, did I run long? My bad.
No, it's okay. It's very
Getting
interesting.
excited. Okay. Okay, here's my favorite tip. Again, this is for on-site only. So if you're not in a rush to take the test and you want to do it on-site, this is my favorite tip, and it's use the paper. So someone asks a question, I can use paper if you're doing the test online? No, you can't. And what goes to paper for a multiple choice exam? It's not a math test. Well, there's a few ways you can use it. One thing that I like to do is jot down notes before getting started. For example, maybe you've memorized the order of execution, and you want to just write that down in the margin of the paper so that when you come to a question about the order of execution, you don't get tricked out of what you know to be correct because you wrote it down before you looked at it. That's an example. You can draw schemas. So you'll get a question about this is the parent of that, this custom object is the parent of that object, this custom object is the parent of that object. And I'll ask you some question about that relationship. I like to draw that out. So I'll do a quick little diagram showing what they said in the question to help me visualize what they're asking me. Supplement the review button. As you're writing down, as you mark questions for review that you want to review, that you want to take note of, write down your paper why you want to review it. Like, what is the question? Because after going through 60 questions, you might come back to that review question, go, why did I mark this for review? What did I think the possibilities were? So you can supplement the review question by taking notes as you go on the paper. And my absolute favorite, number one, never going to give you up, never going to let you down tip is so big it gets 2 slides. And the first part of that, as you're taking the exam, any questions that stump you, write down the keywords of that question and mark it for review. So for example, that Service Cloud exam, macro. I didn't know that, write it down in the margin. And then when I get to the end, before I hit the submit button, I take that list of terms of the keywords that I struggled with, and I memorize them. Maybe put them to a song, some sort of mnemonic device, but I put them into my short-term memory as quickly as I can. Then I hit the submit button. And if you passed, never mind. You can clear your short-term memory and move on with your life. But if you didn't pass, well, don't panic or beat yourself up. Take a deep breath, check out with the proctor, get your stuff, go to a private, quiet place like your car, pull out your phone and open a voice recorder app and record your keyword list while you still have it memorized. Then when you get home, you can transcribe it for more study. When you finish the exam, they tell you right away if you passed. And recently they added the actual scores for it right on the screen for if you passed or failed at the testing center or on your computer. But they'll also send you an email that looks like this. And if you didn't pass, this is my favorite part. They put fail in all uppercase letters, so they yell at you that you failed, and that I just love that. But they tell you how you did on each section. What they don't tell you though is what was your total score. How many did you get right? How many did you get wrong? They don't tell you here, but do I have time to do this? I'll just tell you. I actually developed a spreadsheet calculator to tell me how many questions I got right and wrong and my total score and how many I need to get right that I use. But you can do that yourself, because even though they don't tell you here how well you did, overall, they give you how well you did in each section. So you take this section here and say 66% of an industry knowledge, and you go back to the exam guide that says that section was worth 20%. And with those two numbers, you can figure out how many questions were in that section. and you can figure out how many of those you got right. Apparently, you got 2/3 of them are right. So maybe this was 5%, and that would be 3 questions, and you got 2 out of 3 correct of the industry knowledge. But by knowing that, you can then say, well, where do I have the most room for improvement? Do I have, if a section is worth 50%, and you've got 50% of that correct, well, that means you missed 15 questions in that section. Another section, you may have gotten 0, but if that section was only worth 5%, then that section is only worth three questions. So if I have a limited amount of time to study, I'm going to study on the sections where I have the most room for improvement by quantity, not percentage. Does that make sense? All right. So
Are you going to send that spreadsheet? Or can you send the spreadsheet?
Sure. You know what? I'll pull it up very quickly and just look at, and we'll look at it for like 90 seconds. And I can share the spreadsheet as well. I'll just pull that up on the side. I'll keep going and then we'll come back to it in a second. Okay, final round of tips. Reschedule the exam right away if you didn't pass. Within 2 weeks, a week would be even better. What a lot of people do if they fail the first time, they get discouraged and they just want to not think about it for a month or 2 or 3. Then all the momentum they got from studying for the last few weeks is wasted and lost, and they forget stuff. Schedule it right away. Focus on the areas where you can make the most improvement with your memorized list of words. Prioritize your studying by putting your energy into the areas where you can make up the most ground, and then retake the exam and pass. And that is the certification examination preparation simplification presentation by yours truly. Questions, comments, queries. If you have any, go ahead. I'll pull up my spreadsheet while those start coming in.
Right.
Sorry, I know I talked very fast on that. I was trying to rush. Usually this presentation takes me a full hour, and then there's dialogue as well.
So Roy, I've got a question here.
Yes.
Would you say, depending on the particular certification, that you might need to spend more time? Say you're doing sharing and visibility, VE admin, you might need to put a bit more time into that. Or is it still down to your experience, the environment you've worked in, and all that kind of hands-on?
Yeah, it's always going to depend. The generic advice I gave about how much time is really very generic. It really comes back to the individual. A consultant who's been doing that for 5 years and who's touched 20 orgs may need no time to study. Someone who's been and they've only been doing that for a year or two. An admin who's been at the same company for 10 years, but it's only been doing password resets or simple page layout changes, they might need a lot more time to study. So it really depends on the individual's experience. I think by going through Trailhead and the exam guide, if you just go through and just highlight, yeah, I know how to do that. I know how to do that. Ooh, I don't know what that is. Circle it. I think you can get a good idea by going through the exam guide and just checking off the stuff you know how to do and what you don't know how to do, and then accordingly study those portions, come up with your best guesstimate, and study on those areas. But it's just too individual to say for sure.
Yeah, just look out. Salesforce is changing. They design exam certifications, especially one that are on system architect pyramid part. I was trying to do one on integration, and I was using all trial mix to study. And when I went to the exam, it was all about new certification, and new trial mix wasn't available yet. It was surprising that half of questions that I was expecting to have didn't go there, and just new terminology of Salesforce industries and new APIs that they're making with industries was all over the exam. And exams get really wordy now. You need a lot of time to read questions. Just put your fast thinking hat and be focused when you're doing it. Otherwise, time is just flying on you, and you are in half of exam and you don't have time to finish it. It's just, they are getting more difficult as the new way of doing things coming.
Yeah, that happened to me on the developer certification. I found out I was, this is a great little anecdote. I found out through the Salesforce, these community groups, developer one certification study group, that they updated the exam a week before I had scheduled to take it. And so that made me nervous because I've been studying content a very specific way. But I got the heads up. So I still took it. I passed and I was very excited, but they actually, let's see. They actually, I think when they make a change like that, right after they change it, they lower the score. And this is just my speculation. This is my hunch, because when I took the exam, I noticed that the passing score dropped from 65 to 58%. And I recently looked at it, it's back up to 65. Well, I took the exam like 2 weeks after they changed it. So I think they actually lowered the expectations for a few weeks to kind of let the word get out that the exam had been updated and to kind of lower the expectations. But then they upped the score back up. So it was 65 that I was studying for, then it went down to 58, and then it went back up to 65 as far as what the passing score was. But what I wanted to show you was, let's say this is pretend I passed, but let's say I didn't. Let's say these were the results I got from the exam. And Salesforce fundamentals is I got 25% correct, and the weighting 7%. So if I up that to 100%, well, I only gave myself a couple more questions. I still didn't pass as a result of getting 100% on that section. But this section, which I did 10% better percentage wise, if that goes up to 100%, whoa, Nelly, I passed. And the difference being the weighting. The weighting tells me that after the first exam, I missed 15 questions in this section. That's where I had the most room for improvement. And even though I did worse in this section percentage-wise, it was only 7% of the exam. So I can only make 3 more questions correct by studying this section. So if I'm limited on time and energy and effort, then I'm going to put all my studies into the area where I can make up the most ground. So this is the calculator I built. And what I did was I have instructions here of how to use this tool. And here's the template. Basically, you copy and paste this in. You fill in the categories for that section. You delete the rows you don't need, and throw in the weighting, and then make sure that you got the passing score correct for that exam. And this gives you an idea. It's like, here are my results from the sharing visibility exam I took recently. And that's a very small test, but yeah, this section was worth 76%. You basically pass or fail off that one section. So still, I wanted to know how well I did overall, and I wanted to know how close I came to failing or not. And this one was a little closer, but this was my results for the data architecture. The exam guide told me this. The results told me that. But yeah, and again, I'm going to give props to Focus on Force for getting me ready for these 2 exams. And I think that's probably a good enough segue as any to turn it over to the next part of the meeting.
Thank you,
Unless
Roy.
there are any other questions you want to hit first?
I don't have to cut you off. I think we got to move on. Thank you very,
Yeah.
very much, though, Roy. It was really much appreciated. So Martin, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you share your screen, Martin?
Yes, I can. Let's find the right screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll just get started. So I'm Martin Gessner. Thanks for inviting me to this meeting. So just a little bit about me. So I'm a solution architect, founder of Focus on Force. I started working in Salesforce roles over 10 years ago in various different roles. The last one was as a solution architect in an insurance company here in Sydney, Australia, from where I'm from. But I've worked in different roles as a designer, consultant, analyst, project manager. I have 12 certifications. I've slowed down a little bit just because I'm running Focus on Force full-time now. Focus on Force started as a blog, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more in this presentation just around the idea about starting Focus on Force and where it's got to now and how it can help you as part of your certification studying journey. I had a full-time job until 2018, and then I left that to focus on Force. I have an MBA and I have a degree in IT, so that's my background. So if you haven't heard of Focus on Force, basically what we do is we help people prepare for Salesforce certifications. And the things that are important to us is that we're creating materials that are up to date, and up to date means updated for release updates, which is a huge amount of work for us. As you probably all would know, that for each release, there are hundreds of updates. And so we go through every single line in the release updates to look at what it means and how we should update our materials. We want to make sure that our materials are relevant. And what that means is that the content matches the exam guides. And those exam guides do change. And we actually regularly check the exam guides for changes to the outline. Roy mentioned that the percents change. And so it is dynamic. Community Cloud got changed to Experience Cloud recently, and that caused us a huge amount of work because they basically revised more than half of the whole exam outline and changed the topics around and changed the percents. We're about learning, so it's not just you know, trying to help people pass the exam, and it's about learning this as well. Effective to us means that what we're trying to do is help you learn effectively. So we try to provide summaries, visual aids, screenshots, and efficiently, which means we've tried to build in some personalization so that, like Roy showed with the spreadsheet, when you find out if you did fail, you know, where you need to spend more time on, or even when you use our platform, it tells you, you know, the areas, if you do topic exams, where you need to spend more time. So the next one, so just stepping back a bit and back to 2014, this is when I was working as a Salesforce consultant for a consulting company. And I had the idea, this was back when Roy mentioned, you know, all the different resources that you can use right now. They didn't exist really, a lot of them back then. And when I started studying for Salesforce certifications, I made the system where I made my notes. I looked at the exam outline, made my notes. And I also wanted a way to test myself and make sure that I could get prepared. And so basically what I created was something that I wanted, and I hoped that it exists, but it didn't exist. So I created it myself. And this is just also taking a step back and saying, well, how does Focus on Force fit into everything else that's available? So there's no silver bullet when you're studying for Salesforce certifications. You really need to combine a whole bunch of different things to get ready. And so you can benefit from doing Trailhead, obviously. You can do instructor-led courses. You can do self-study. Hands-on experience is really important. A lot of people try to cram the exams, and I don't really think that's the most effective way. Hands-on experience in the job, or even just doing your own projects. Instead of trying to get through it in, some people want to get through it in 3 or 4 weeks. And as Roy said, it really depends on your background and your on-the-job experience. But it really needs to combine a whole bunch of these things for the certifications to mean something. And then where we fit in there is the step just before the exam, because what we provide is we provide the study guides, which basically give you outlines for every single exam topic. So it's very focused. And the practice exams, which also, we've created original questions, and they're going to help you prepare and learn the topics. So moving on, what I'm going to talk about, and it's not going to be a very long presentation. I'll go quickly through it because I know it's not the typical one where you're learning about Salesforce, but I think it'll be interesting just to understand a little bit more about where we came from and how we've developed the platform to make something that's useful for people that are studying like yourselves. And over the years, we've had over 100,000 people go through the platform. So it has been useful for a lot of people. So what we've come up with now, as I said, we've got a study guide and we've got a practice exam. We cover 11 certifications. The last one that we added was JavaScript. People keep asking us every day almost, when's the next one? But it's a lot of work to create a study guide and a practice exam set. So right now, as I said, Experience Cloud had, was Community Cloud just changed to Experience Cloud. So that probably took us a month for the whole team to work on. So Roy, I didn't catch all of Roy's presentation, but the reason that we exist is for a lot of people, it can be very overwhelming. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to structure. What we're trying to provide is something just to help go through the whole process and help break it down so that people can go through it topic by topic. There are free resources out there, Profs and Quizlet and all of those. The danger with those is some of them are out of date, some of them are wrong, and you can't rely on them. Nobody's updating them. For us, we have a forum. We get a huge amount of feedback, and we update our materials every single day from people's feedback. So it's really important to us that our materials are relevant and up to date. Going back to 2014, this is where it all started with a blog. And when I was working as a consultant, and I was writing articles about what I learned on consulting projects. And I started adding sample quizzes, and it really didn't look very good, but it was just a part-time project. Traffic started to build. I was adding about one blog post a month. In 2015 is when I added the first product, and that was for the admin exams, and traffic kept growing. We get a lot of referrals, so thanks to Roy and other people in the community who find our materials useful and they mention it to other people. And as the years went along, we tried to improve the UI, we added more certs, and traffic kept increasing over the years. We had actually added a homepage instead of a blog roll. And that's when I left my full-time job. And that's when we also managed to start adding more and more certs as I had more time. And then we also started to focus on how to present the material better. So you can see there was an old format, looks much better in the new format. And we have a couple of instructional designers on the team as well, who have really helped level up just the presentation of the materials. So you can see here, this is some examples of how we're summarizing some of the topics. We also try to include a lot of screenshots, and I think Salesforce sometimes doesn't include a lot of screenshots because in Trailhead and Help, because it's a huge amount of work to keep them up to date. They change all the time. And we've got thousands of screenshots and we're in there every day updating them. And what else did I want to say about this? So again, it's not supposed to replace Trailhead, not supposed to replace like instructor-led training. It's supposed to be just one other tool that you can use as part of all of the different things that you should do to prepare for certifications. We cover 11 certifications, but the most popular ones obviously would be admin, and then after that is PD1, and after that is app builder. So that's just a bit of trivia. I probably could have guessed that, but they're the most popular ones. But we do like to cover the rest of them, and there is some overlap between the different certs. So some of the challenges that we've had, so this is more on the business side, but when someone mentioned us, I remember I went to an event in Las Vegas called Destination Success. I think it was 2017. And there were 1,000 people in the ballroom. And I sat down at one table and someone said, "Oh, have you heard of Focus on Force?" And the other people around the table, they got out their phone and they started looking it up. And then I went to another table and they're like, "Oh, you should use Focus on Force. It's really useful." And so then the word sort of got around in this event. I went back to my hotel room, and that's when it was probably one of these spikes where the server died. because there was just too much activity. So that was a good problem to have. But it meant over the years, we've had to upgrade our infrastructure, and we're on very powerful hosting now because we do have a lot of users, and we have a lot of groups as well. We support nonprofit groups, and some of those groups have a lot of people in their classes. Our server died as well a couple of years ago when there was 100 people all trying to log in all at once. But we, as I said, we're on much better hosting now, so it can handle hundreds or thousands of users. I built this as something that I thought could help me, but over the years, we've got lots of requests from users. And so that's really the point of this platform, to support users with their studying. And so here's some examples of what we've done that can help you and other people when they're studying. So one of the things that we did is we created topic exams. So as Roy said, and as you look at the exam outline, you'll see all of the different topics, and they've got different weightings. And we created topic exams so that you can just do one, you can focus on that one topic. And then you can combine your study with Trailhead, with our study guide, with the topic exam, and really dive deeply into the topics and go through it. And I also sort of suggest setting a schedule and sort of setting, you know, what topics are you going to try to study over the weeks that you've allowed yourself until the date. And we also have the full practice exams. They're supposed to simulate the exam taking experience. And a lot of people haven't taken an exam since high school or college. And, you know, some people, it might have been 10 years or 20 years and they're a little bit nervous. So we try to simulate that. And the question bank exams, so that's when people just have 10, 15 minutes and they just want to do a small sample. So we tried to break it up into different types of ways of studying. We create original questions. They're scenario-based, so most of the questions in the actual exams are scenario-based. And as Roy said, you know, they're a single, they're a multiple choice. We spend a lot of time on the explanations. So for us, it's not about just, you know, getting it right or wrong. When you get your results, as Roy showed, you know, you just get a pass or a fail. We spend a lot of time on these explanations and try to explain why was it correct, why was it incorrect. People really appreciate that. And we provide the reference link to help or Trailhead so that, you know, we're not claiming that we're going to be able to, you know, we're not giving you all of the details for every single topic. So it's up to you to delve into topics that you don't feel that are very familiar. So we provide the reference links. We also try to create screenshots so that you can visualize things. Sometimes, you know, it always is better to set it up yourself in your own dev org and get the experience. But if you don't have the time, some things take a bit of time to set up in config. So this is just a handy sort of reminder, you know, to show you what does it actually look like in the UI if you set something up. And the next one, so what we tried to do, sorry, I'm just going to turn off this alarm that's going off in the background. What we tried to do also is add some personalization features. So this is a color-coded grid in admin that's showing the scores, and it's showing which ones the person needs to focus on more as they go through each one, instead of just going over and over. So you can come back to it and you can just focus on the ones that you are needing to delve into more. And also we added the retake the wrong questions on the topic exams. This is a simple feature, but people like it a lot, where you can just set a goal. When have I scheduled to take the exam? How many days are left? And you can mark them complete. It'll show a timeline. And a lot of people use that. We have a dashboard to show your progress. And that's all that. We have pop-ups. So the idea behind this was it's a community of people learning, and if there are things that you think you know, could actually be added, I think you know, people will learn in different ways, and having examples from different people in the community you know, can really bring things to life. Otherwise, it can be a lot of theory. So the idea behind this feature is, you know, with reporting and analytics, if there was an interesting story or something that you've learned, that's an opportunity to submit it, and you know, we could add it in as a scenario or something to sort of complement the content. For PD1, we added code exercises. So obviously, you know, the development certs, they're hands-on, and you actually need to know syntax, and you need to know, you know, how things work. So we added these code exercises where you can go through and actually write code, and then it will check it, and we give hints. So it's not actually it's not connecting. I've seen some solutions that actually connect to a Salesforce org like Trailhead or other solutions, and they go and actually verify it. But we're not doing that. What we're doing here is just trying to give some sort of basic examples, some challenges, and helping people, you know, make sure that they understand how some of these concepts work. And what we've also done, we've added topic videos. So what we've done is, this is an example in PD1 for one particular topic, where we get what we call a guest instructor to basically go through our materials, but then also give examples as well. So obviously people learn in different ways. So for the people that want to listen to someone going through the materials, we have a whole bunch of guest instructors. These aren't all of them, but they're just some examples of people who have contributed. And we'll be adding more of those as we go through. Another feature that we're adding, we don't have it yet, but we're just about to add it, is a mind map. And going back to people who like to learn in different ways. So I like mind maps, and I think a lot of other people like it. As you're going through the material, I always like to sort of make a picture out of it. And so this is going to be an opportunity to use a mind map, online mind map tool that's embedded within our platform, to kind of visualize information, if that's the way that you like to organize it. We added social login. We got a lot of requests for that because, as you know, everyone has too many passwords. We've supported a lot of nonprofits and volunteer groups over the years. And just quickly around marketing. So we interview people, we create blog articles about tips. We are on LinkedIn. A lot of people mention us on LinkedIn. We get a lot of testimonials from people. And the type of testimonials that I like the best are the ones that, like when people say, I felt prepared, you know, they like the examples, they like the screenshots. We get people that say, they give us feedback and they say, I took the test and I didn't find any of the questions that on the actual test. So your stuff is no good. And I'm like, well, that's great. Yeah, I like that feedback. We're not about actually giving you the actual questions. That's not what we're about. We're about helping people learn. So yeah, that's really satisfying when we get you know, like that first one. Questions were genuine, very well thought out and very helpful. It's actually really, really difficult to create questions. And not everyone can do it. It's a big challenge. Just to create one question can take, you know, 1 hour. If you really think through it, if it's a detailed question, if you've got to come up with options and make the explanation and screenshots. But this is really what we're about. Like, it's about helping people learn the whys, you know, making it clear, compact, and just another, you know, another tool to use in your overall presentation. And here's one where it says it's a great complement to Trailhead. So that's what it's about. And as I said at the beginning, there's no silver bullet. So it's about combining all of these different sort of resources, online resources, study groups, Trailhead, everything. A little bit about the team. So it was just me when we started, and now it's grown into a lot more than me, because to create and update and maintain 11 certs creates a lot of, it needs a lot of people. So we have a lot of people on the left who are more around the content side. We have what we call SMEs. So these are casual people around the world that help us, who are experts in one particular area. So for example, I'm not a developer, so I'm not going to be the one that is doing the PD2, for example. But we find very experienced people who then fit into our process. And we have a quality process to make sure that everything is consistent and up to the quality that we expect. So on the left, it's about content. On the right, it's more about support. And we have a couple of developers, testers. And in terms of our workflow, so a lot of people say, when's the next one going to be? Actually creating a new cert, if we were going to start today, it would take us about 3 months, because what we do is we follow a methodology. So we review the exam outline. It's just like if you were studying yourself. So you have to get out the exam outline, you have to research the topics, you have to get the notes. We use Trello to organize everything. So we create a Trello card for every objective. Then we decide on the questions. We assign questions according to the weightings. So as Roy showed, and as you would know, some sections are much higher weighted than other sections. So we're going to create more questions on those weightings. In SVD, I think it was declarative sharing was 76%. So we're going to create lots of questions on those. And we've got the instructional designer that will go in and do their thing. And then we'll check them, we'll publish them. So it's 3 months worth of work for a new one. But even to keep the existing material current is a huge amount of work. Every day we're checking the exam outlines. As Roy said, the percents can change. They can be tweaking the actual exam outline between releases. We've seen that. We've also seen that Salesforce makes mistakes. So for example, in Experience Cloud, they duplicated one of the objectives when they just updated it, and they put the same objective in 2 different sections. And we're like, that's not right. They're gonna realize that soon. And I've also, I tell Salesforce sometimes you've made a mistake. And sometimes they go backwards and forwards. So they go forwards, they update the exam outline, and then the next release, they'll go backwards to a previous one and include a feature that doesn't even exist anymore. And then I go and tell them. So it is important, I guess the point there is it's important that you make sure you're looking at the most recent exam outline. We've had some people going back to Experience Cloud again. We've had some people coming back to us and saying they failed Experience Cloud because they didn't realize just how much it had changed from Community Cloud to Experience Cloud. So you really need to make sure, at least on I'd say a weekly basis, that the exam that you're studying for, that you keep checking the outline and make sure nothing has changed. We do that every day because people are relying on us for it to be up to date. But we review every release update. We put it in a Google Sheet and we go through every single line, which is a huge amount of work. And we basically go through it, work out what's changed, what do we need to update. We assign it to people and we publish the changes. And then for keeping it up to date, we get a huge amount of feedback. So we have a forum and we go through the forums every day and we respond. We'll update our materials if people tell us that it's not clear, it's out of date. We get lots of page comments. So we also are looking at those every single day. We send out a survey. We get emails from people. So we really take it seriously to keep everything up to date as best we can. And it's not perfect. It's you know, as you know, it's an ever-changing world, but we do our best to keep on top of it. We use Trello. We have boards for every part of the business, every exam, every study guide, everything is all tracked. And we have lists. We break everything down. We have workflows and people assigned as it flows through. And on the cards, we have checklists, and we follow, you know, that checklist for everything to make sure that everything is consistent. We actually built a Salesforce app for internal use. Just because we've got thousands of questions. We've probably got 5,000 or 6,000 questions in our question bank across all 11 certs. And just keeping that all up to date, and when you assign it to different people and when there's a workflow involved, it just got, we just couldn't manage it anymore. I started out managing it in a Google Sheet, and then I progressed to building an app using AppScript. And then we progressed to actually building a Salesforce app. So that's good for our team as well, because we're actually in there every day developing in Salesforce. And you can see along the top there, there's a whole workflow that goes through different people, different stages. And this Salesforce app is a really key part of our processes. And some of the challenges, so it's really hard to find people to contribute. So you really need people that know Salesforce, but you also need people that can actually create questions, create study materials, that can actually teach. It's a hard combination to find, and that's why we have a team of people. So we have the people, the SMEs that know Salesforce, but then we have instructional designers, and we have the other people all in a workflow to put it all together. And then keeping up with Salesforce updates, I've talked about that, and just technical issues as more and more people use the platform. And in the future, so what we plan is more videos. We're thinking of adding office hours. So we'll have an SME maybe once a month or once a fortnight that's just available to answer questions for people. A lot of people, I think, maybe a little bit lonely when they're studying. There are the study groups, like Roy mentioned, you know, you can join those. I don't have a lot of experience with those, to be honest, but I'm thinking it would be useful. It'd be good to get everyone's feedback on this, but I'm thinking it would be useful just to have someone there, you know, that is available to answer questions. We're planning on adding more personalization and gamification features, add more certs, maybe more non-cert related certs like Flow Builder, and more corporate sales. So we do actually support a lot of corporates and consulting companies. They buy access for their teams. And that's it. So that was us in around half an hour.
Well, thank you, Martin. That was really very interesting.
So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to. And one thing I wanted to mention was Roy shared his spreadsheet. We're planning in the next few weeks to add a online version of that to our site. And it'd be good to get Roy's feedback on that once it goes up.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll send you a copy of mine if you like. It's just simple Excel logic. But the one thing I should have said about the spreadsheet, and this will inform what you're doing, I reached out to Salesforce and I pestered them quite a bit to give me a straight answer on this, and they wouldn't, but they nodded heavily that I was on the right track, that the weighting of the questions is each question is worth 1/60th of the exam, that they said a section is weighted as like 50%. Well, in my mind, that means there are 30 questions, right? It's like, well, we won't confirm that. It's like, but
okay.
What else could it be? Like, how is, like, this question's worth twice as much as this is only worth half as much? Like how would you break that down? But while they wouldn't confirm it, I finally did have a conversation with someone at Salesforce in the exam department who said, your tool is good enough for what you're trying to accomplish. I was like, all right, fine.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think of people, you know, having that sort of tool, and I know there's other ones available already online, but yeah, I think it's really useful just to you know, find out how close you were to passing, like you had at the end of that. Say, you know, I missed out by 2 or 3 questions.
Well, I'll add real quickly to my testimonial, Martin, that the thing that I liked most about Focus on Force, I got the study guides and the exams for the tests I prepped using Focus on Force for, and what I loved was after going through the study guides and doing the exams, at the bottom having a detailed explanation about why I was right or why I was wrong, and those screen grabs with arrows and blocks highlighting stuff. It just, there's so much of the exam that's so abstract that when you get those pictures and that make it concrete. So you mentioned this, but I'll just highlight for everyone, like, until you see the Focus on Force exam, you really want to appreciate it. But once you see it, you're going to go, oh, brilliant. Yes. Now I recognize it. Now I see it. It's like when you drive through a neighborhood and you know how to get from point A to point B, but you don't know all the street names. You go, well, I know you make a left here and a right there, and you turn at the red house and stuff. It's like not clear. But when you get those pictures that give you the street names and the addresses and that focus, it's just so helpful. So it's not just important to know what the right answer is. It's important to know why the wrong answers are wrong. And Focus on Force gives you that as well. And that really helps solidify the content. As far as the questions not being on the exam, well, shame on them if it was, because that's called cheating, people. Don't use Quizlet. Don't use the exam question dumps. That is cheating. And memorizing answers to questions doesn't show that you know anything. But if you understand the Focus on Force content and the concepts behind those questions and what they share, then you go to the Salesforce and take the exam, then the concept that's locked in will help you to suss out the question and give the right answer. And you'll not just get it right for the exam, but you'll get it right for having the knowledge and retaining the knowledge. So I'll say that bluntly, since I don't work at Focus on Force.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've had, it's interesting to us, some people have actually, we give access for 1 year, and we get people who actually purchase it again just for reference purposes. So they find it useful, not just for exam prep, but just to have it there, you know, and as a refresher, because obviously the Salesforce world has just become so wide, you know, and you might work on a project in one area, but then, you know, you didn't work on something for a couple of years. And so it's just another resource basically that some people have found useful. So thanks for your positive comments, Roy. I'm happy that you found it useful as well. And that's really the intention of the whole thing. So any other questions from anyone? Did you have any other suggestions, Roy? I know that you've used the platform. I showed some of the, you know, features that, like I showed the mind map feature. That's one example of something that we're looking to add. Also mentioned the office hours, adding in an SME, maybe once a month, once a week, once a fortnight, something like that. Someone live. Did you have any comments, feedback, suggestions, ideas?
You know, actually, I have a lot, and I've shared a few with them already with Focus on Force through the proper channels. But I'm excited about the office hours. I think that's brilliant. I love the overall structure of the website. It's mostly pretty intuitive. If there's one thing that I wish could have been a little neater or easier, was the forums and how to connect with people about different questions and things like that. I was looking at a specific question and I was confused, and then I wanted to go to the forum and talk about it, but it was difficult to navigate the forum. So there's some room for improvement there, I think. But I didn't come for the forum. I came for the study guides and the exam. So it was so small. I still give a strong endorsement for Focus on Force. But if the forums could be a little easier to search and navigate, that would be nice.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
My feedback from using your practice exams are, I was very, very pleasantly surprised how effective they were. It really pointed out the stuff that I really didn't know, that I thought I did know. And that was something that I really appreciated getting. The only feedback that I found was some of Nash also spoke about this, is that I was preparing for an exam and there was a release change, and I didn't go back and I didn't look at the study guide from Trailhead, and it changed the percentages on the test. And then I wrote the test and I said, holy shit, there's tons more questions than I thought. and then I failed the exam, and that was, I had to blame myself because I didn't go back before I wrote the exam, and because I just took it for granted that that what I was focused on was exactly what was there. But unfortunately, I got caught between a change in the release and the Salesforce changing their exam. But anyways, that's life.
Yeah, I have a question. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It seems I just got email yesterday, I think, from Salesforce. And it seems that they are introducing now a new way of accreditation. They call it accredited professional. Before they used terms like product ranger or something like this. Do you know something about those new upcoming changes on how they certify or accredit skills?
I actually got the same email, and it said, "Thanks for signing up to this program." And I don't remember signing up to that program. It looked to me like it was getting sent to partners, not getting sent to just customers. And it looked like it was a way of accrediting industries and specific maybe products as a Salesforce partner, a consulting partner. But yeah, I was surprised, and I looked for more information. They were mentioning like a whole bunch of new exams and accreditation. So does anyone else know about this?
It seems it's going to be a combination between, you can use Trailhead to get it, or you can use Partner Learning Portal to get it, or things like that. But I'm not sure yet what does it mean. And because I did few beta exams over my time, they send me, when they have new beta exam, to participate, at least questionnaire if I'm willing to participate and things like that. But it seems change is coming. This is all what I'm trying to say. It's not surprising, Salesforce, you know.
Right.
Nothing is static there, you know, except the change. You know, it's the only thing that's on place.
Martin, I have a question for you. I'm kind of curious about. What's your relationship with Salesforce like? Is it a love-hate relationship, or do they see you as a friend or as a competitor as far as their materials? Like, do they keep you in the loop on things and give you the inside skinny, or do they keep you at arm's distance and you have to find out things the hard way like the rest of us?
One thing that's really interesting to me is that we actually have a lot of Salesforce employees that purchase access to our materials. At an employee level, as you may or may not know, if you join Salesforce, depending on your role, you have to get certified within 3 months, 6 months, and get one or more certs. And so it's always nice for me to see that actual Salesforce employees purchase our materials. But that's at an employee level. At a corporate level, we have had contact over the years. So it's not a close relationship. We don't get inside information. I guess they're more concerned around just the integrity of the exams. So a couple of years ago, they looked at us. I guess they were doing a sweep, and they wanted to make sure, you know, that they cleaned up anyone that was like exposing the exams as in dumps. So they had a look at us and they said, you know, they didn't have an issue with what we're doing and that they thought what we're doing was quite good. And I've had other contact at different levels of Salesforce, and they do like what we're doing. They appreciate that we support the community, but there's no inside information. Very unfortunately, close. Like what I would really like is if they gave us a heads up, you know, like not the
heads
actual
up Experience Cloud now.
Exactly. If they had given us a bit of heads up around that, that's the sort of thing that would really help us, and it would help the community. It's not gonna, you know, it's just going to be better for everyone, because it's not great for them when people fail, and it's discouraging for actual test takers to fail when, you know, there are these sudden changes, and sometimes it is sudden. From one day to the next, they'll just change something.
Yep.
I got a question for both you and Roy. So online when you take your exam online, they don't tell you to have.
Hold on a second. Mita, would you mind muting your microphone?
Mita?
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Kevin.
That's because she lives next door. So, so you mentioned, Roy, they let you have a piece of paper. So the first time I did an exam online, I did have a piece of paper and I wrote on it, and they didn't stop me. But the second time I wrote the exam, they stopped me and they said, well, you can't have paper. I almost felt like lobbying Salesforce and say, you know what, this is stupid. Like, if you can do it in the classroom, why can't you do it online? And I really think that, you know,
I think I explained that.
The example that I remember the most was, it was a really complicated relationship between like a schema builder thing, and trying to wrap my head around that question was so hard to just envision it, you know, in my mind versus having a piece of paper. And go ahead, Roy.
Here's why you don't get paper when you do it online. Web cameras, they're not all high definition, super good quality. And you could have invisible ink, you could have lightly written on the paper, a bunch of answers already. You could give yourself all sorts of cheat sheets that would be hard for them to see in the proctoring. When you go to the on-site to take it, they provide the paper, they provide the pencil. They have you empty out your pockets, they have you lock up all your stuff in a locker. So when you go in there, all you have is your driver's license, your paper, your pencils, earplugs, and the key to your locker. You don't have your wallet. You don't even have a smartwatch. If you're wearing a Fitbit or something, that goes in the locker too, because they don't want you to have smart devices in there. And so they can control the on-site much easier than they can control your home office. If you have crib notes lightly written in very light pencil on that paper or something that they couldn't see if you held it up to the camera, they're just eliminating that from it by saying you can't use paper if you're going to do it online.
Also, when you're doing on-site, when you go out, they take all your paper from you.
They take your paper. Yeah. And sometimes they'll actually sign the paper before you go in to make sure that you didn't swap it out when you leave. So they take it very seriously. Now, is that an eye-rolling thing about cheaters? Yeah, but that's why.
Yeah, I'm going to stop recording. I should have stopped this a few minutes ago, but